record this session. So when we're all done, sometime later this afternoon, you'll get an email from me that has some additional resources and also has a link to be able to review, to view a recording of the session. So you can always go back a month from now, 2 months from now, and be able to refer to anything we talk about today. And finally, we're in this together. So we have educators from around the state. We're all in this together to serve our students. All right, so now that we have our agreements talked about, we're able to move on and really jump into Google Classroom. So the first thing that we want to talk about are some skills, some baseline skills that you probably got videos on in an email from Liza sometime in the last week. And the first of those is how to create a class. So I do have a resource in here, a YouTube video that you can go back to if you need that in the future. The other thing that is really helpful is this link on the right-hand side where it says, welcome to your first day of classroom. At this point, you can watch what I'm doing, or you can follow along and control your own screen. Either way is cool. But when we get to this first day of classroom or getting started with Google Classroom, this is a brand new resource that Google put out back in the spring. And in it, we have short little videos about all the different non-negotiable, definitely essential parts of using Google Classroom. Most of these videos are around 30 seconds. You might find one or two that are closer to a minute, but ultimately they're really short. The other thing to note is someone's trying to tear down my... One second, I'll be right back. The other really cool thing that I saw for the first time last week in these videos is if you click the 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of any of the videos, there's an option to do picture-in-picture. And so I can go to Google Classroom and make the changes or use the features that I'm learning about while being able to watch my video. So notice I have my video in the bottom right.
Google Classroom is an easy-to-use tool that helps teachers manage
that tutorial as I go. As we continue to scroll down in here, you'll see that we have other tips and tricks from teachers, and these are all YouTube videos that we can learn how to create a quiz or copy a course, and we will be covering those things in our session today. And then we get even more ideas about how we can use things. I particularly like the traffic lights and parents lesson plan, and that really shows how we can amplify our communication with families, especially during our hybrid learning or distance learning plan. Okay, so keep rolling on. We're gonna go back to our slides and really get started at this point. So what I'd like you to do is head to Google Classroom, and there are a couple ways that we can do this. The easiest one is to simply type in classroom.google.com, or if you're using a Google tool right now, you might see the 3-dot menu in the top right. I'll show you mine real quick. So in here, I have this 3x3 grid. I like to call it a waffle menu. When we click on that, it comes up with all my tools. Let's go ahead and get to Google Classroom one of those ways, and we'll come back together in just a moment. Okay, so now that I see lots of, I saw a lot of, I can't talk right now. Okay, so we are all in Google Classroom. I'm gonna go ahead and re-log in. If you're brand new to Classroom, you might see, a picture of, are you a student or are you a teacher? Please pick that you are a teacher, and that will allow you the ability to make classes. Now, there are some districts throughout the state that do not have certain features of Classroom turned on. So if you're running into some issues, it might be a local setting that isn't allowing it to behave properly. All right, so we're in Classroom. You'll notice the first thing that we see is I have these 2 different cards, and each one represents a class. You might have a card in there too that shows here's a class title. If you have upcoming assignments, they would be displayed here as well. In the top right-hand corner, there's a plus sign. And if you click on the plus sign, that's where we either create or join a class. So let's go ahead and click there. And when we do that, our students might join a class in the future. You might join a class for professional development. For our purposes, let's go ahead and if you haven't already created a class, this is where you would go. I know that that was kind of a prereq, so you can just open the class that you already created and that would work. I'm going to quickly walk through how to create the class here. So we would drop in our class name. So this would be demo. Section, I like to think of that as like what class period. So this is maybe more of a secondary thing. Then we can put in a subject. This is, we'll put PE. And then we can put the room if we want to. When we're all set, we would hit create and it would generate a new card for us that we could enter into. For me, I'm gonna go into where it says live demo, May 11th. Again, go ahead and pick a class. Once we enter into a class, a couple things that we'll notice is kind of most prominently right here in the middle is, this is called the theme. And each theme has a different photo and it has information about your course. So we see here's my class title, here is my class period 3A. We get things like the class code, and then we'll also talk about what a meet link could be as we continue to roll ahead. Some other things that we see along the left-hand side is upcoming assignments. And that's going to tell you you have a quiz that you scheduled for next Tuesday, or this project is due at this point. So just a heads up that that information would display for you and your students as well. When I'm in Google Classroom, one of the first things I like to do when I give a tour is kind of bounce through what these different tabs are at the top. And we're going to start off in Stream because that's where you and your students will most likely begin too. And you can think of Stream as a this is what your social media feed would be. So if you're a Facebook user, when you log in, you have all the different posts that people have done and you can easily see this. So as a teacher, you're going to see share something with your class and you can just drop in a quick message. So I'm going to click where it says share something with your class and type in welcome to our classroom. I can't type. Wait to learn with you. Once I have my message in there, I can add a resource. We'll talk about that in just a second. But for me right now, I just want to post it. So now when my students come in, they see this quick welcome message and they know what type of learning community we're going to be a part of. We're going to come back to Stream periodically throughout our session. Please know that whenever we post something new, it will show up in the stream, but you don't have to create things from the stream. Most of our creation is going to be done in the classwork tab. So let's go ahead and click where it says classwork up at the top. And when we do that, a few things that you'll notice, probably the most prominent is we have this blue create button. And that's what we want to click right at the beginning. So let's go ahead and click create. And in here, we have a few different types of posts that we can do. The very first one is assignment. We'll definitely spend the majority of our time looking at assignment, but you can also make quizzes, and these are really cool because they are self-graded. So after you make your answer key, you get item analysis, you get lots of information about how your students performed. We will look at an example of that in a little bit. We can do different types of polling or discussion board posts with questions. Or if you just need materials to get to your students, but you don't need anything back, so maybe like a syllabus or here are the learning tools that we're going to be using in this class, you can post that to them. But for now, we're going to look at topic. And I like to start with topic for a few different reasons, but mainly when we're transitioning from having, and I go into a lot of classrooms as a technology coach, and I see the filing cabinet, right? And when we look in these filing cabinets, we might have Unit 1 and all of the resources for Unit 1 are in that folder. And I like to think about the topics in that same way. Anything related to Unit 1 is going to be in that folder under that topic, and my students can easily filter and be able to find that unit. So for this, we'll pretend that unit 1 is looking at cell membranes. Okay, so I have my topic. I'm going to hit add, and now I can start putting resources into this folder as I post assignments, or I put messages to my kids, whatever it might be. The other cool thing that we can do is on the left-hand side where it says all topics, I can also filter over here, where my students could as well, to just May 11th through 15th. So if your students are, trying to find your vocabulary topic list, they can just come over to topics, select vocabulary, and be able to find everything they need. So some other things to know, that until you actually post an assignment, you can build as many of these topics out in advance as you want, and your kids can't see them. So this is really helpful to be able to plan a unit or 5 units ahead. And your kids won't see it until you hit publish for any of those contents within it. The next thing I want to run through is going back to where it says create. And this time, instead of going to topic, we're going to go to assignment. When I click assignment, it comes up with this view. And this is going to be kind of common throughout a lot of our other types of things that we can post. But this is, to me, really the main one, the type of post that the majority of people are using on a day-to-day basis. So when I get in here, the first thing that we are prompted to do and we have to do is make a title. So my title here is going to be Membrane Hyperdoc. And that's going to be the name of this assignment. And I can put more than one resource, and we'll see how to do that in just a second. I like to skip over the instructions, and I like to do this after I've added in whatever materials I'm going to compile. And I do that by clicking add down in the bottom left. When I do this, I get 4 different choices. We'll run through how to use each of these. Again, my assumption is the main one that you'll use is probably the first one, Google Drive. And I'll admit, out of all the features of Classroom, when I first was introduced to Classroom, this was my favorite. This is the one that I had to lift my jaw back up because it caught me by such excitement. My jaw dropped. All right, so in here, I can find whichever file I want to use. So I'm going to use collaborative, this document here. And when I select it, I hit the blue add button. And now I have this resource that's popping in for me. Now, please note to the right-hand side, I have this drop-down button that says by default, it's going to be students can view file. But I also have 2 other choices. So my 3 settings that I can do for a Google Drive file, and it doesn't matter if it's a doc, slide, whatever, I can do students can view file. Again, this is going to be something where they don't need to interact with it. They just need to be able to access and see it. So it might be, here are my slides for the day, or it might be, here's my syllabus or a reading list, whatever it might be. The next one is students can edit file. And this one's a little tricky because this is all of our students, all 30 of my students are going to be editing the same file potentially at the same time. So I like to build to this. So we might scaffold by having a conversation about what collaborative work looks like, how to be good digital citizens and not typing over or deleting what other people are doing. But I certainly do use this option, and I find it to be really helpful in certain times. Then the final one is make a copy for each student. So essentially this turns my resource over here into a blank template that every single student's going to get their own copy of. This is my favorite of the options. I use this all the time, and I think that you'll really like this too. So I'm going to go through and add a couple other resources just really quickly. I'm going to put in these slides. And when I do that, please note that not all of my Google Drive resources need to have the same setting on the right-hand side. They can each be unique depending on how I want my students to engage with them. So for the second one, my students all need to be able to edit the same file. This is a sign up resource, and everybody needs to be able to go in and make changes. So those are the Google Drive resources that I can add. But if I go back in here, I can also click to add a link. So if I need them to go to Newsela, I can do that. I can add a file. So this would be, I'm uploading something from my computer or a flash drive. And then I can also insert a YouTube video. So when I click YouTube, it allows me to do a search directly in here. And my results are going to pop up. They tell me how long each video is. This is a 67-minute lecture. I don't want that. Here's a TED Ed video, and I know that those are amazing. So I'm going to select this 5-minute video from TED Ed, and now my students can watch this. Now, an important thing to note, you still would want to be able to review the entire video. So to do this, we can just click on the title, and it's going to come up with a, I can watch it directly here. I do want to watch my entire video before I share it with my students. Okay, so that's how we add different resources to the assignment. Now that I have my pieces in there, I can go back to the instructions, and I like to think of this as a table of content. So my first one is please complete your copy of collaborative website overview. And I can just tell them how I want them to engage with each of these different topics in here. Now, this might be more of a secondary thing, but keep in mind, if our students are still at home, they probably will have a parent who can assist with some of this. So even if you're working with littles, you might be able to add some information that the parent could see. You could also, if you wanted to, add a video of you talking through the directions and then just paste it in here so that you can describe how you want people to work with it. It continues to have more of that social or humanistic quality when we have a video in there. Now I'm moving over to the right-hand sidebar, and we're gonna look at some of the settings that I can do for this class. The very first one is for, and I can post this to multiple classes at the same time. This is really helpful if you have 7 different sections of your biology class and you want to make an assignment and get it to all of your kids instead of having to go into each of your courses. And you can just simply do a checkbox for whichever classes you want to do. The other thing that we can do is just to the right. And in here, it allows me to pick individual students. Now in this class right now, I only have 1 student, but I could go through and say, these 5 students need this resource, and I can go in and differentiate for those 5. I also know that some teachers will do this for each group will get their own assignment that is customized for their topic or for the strengths of that group. So you can use it for a few different creative ways. Continuing down, we get this option of adding in a point value. So I can make this out of 35 points if I want. I can do any whole number amount of points in here as an option. We also have the choice for ungraded, and this would remove the grade book aspect of it, but I can still see how they're doing and get feedback from my kids. I am gonna make this worth 60 points. Next, I can put in a due date. So for this, I'm gonna put it as July 28th. And I can put a time in there if I want to. By default, it's going to be 11:59 p.m. I can assign the topic, or I can create a new topic directly from here. I'm going to put this in as cell membranes. And then we can also attach a rubric or check plagiarism. I have videos in our presentation that you can go back to and be able to watch those to learn more about those 2 features. When I'm all set and I have all of my settings the way that I want it to be, I'm going to go back to the top right, and by default, it says assign, where it would post immediately. Please also note that just to the left of that, it does tell me that it's constantly saving anytime I make a change. So even if my computer shuts down, I can always go back and re-access that draft. But next to where it says assign on the right-hand side, we have a drop down. And in here, I have the choice of assigning it right now. I can schedule it, I can save it to come back, or I can just trash that draft. Assign is really the simplest, but if I click schedule, I can pick the date and time that I want it to go live. So I'm going to say I want it to go live July 20th at 9:28 a.m. we'll say, okay, so now it's working and I can hit schedule. And at 9:28, in just a minute or so, this will automatically publish. And this is really helpful if you want it to go live every Sunday morning so that your kids can see what the work for the upcoming week would be, and the parents can begin to know and expect that that type of post is coming. So again, very easy way to be able to post things for our kids. Continuing down through create, I'm going to show you an example of a quiz. We're not going to have time today to be able to like really run through how to create one, but I do want to show you what they look like once you have made one. So in this class, I have an assignment that's already been made that was a quiz. So you'll see a couple things in here. So when I get into this assignment, I can see the scores of my different students when I click on the name of my quiz. And this is using Google Forms. And in here, I can see all the responses, okay? So I'm bouncing over here. I get data analysis. I can see that the average is 42.55, not that great. I can see the median, I can see the range, and all of these, all of this information is updating in real time. So if a 48th person submitted, all of my numbers would change. Next, I get frequently missed questions. And in here, we can see these are, oops, let me get back up to that. So these will be the questions that I want to go back and reteach, right? So I know that my students, only 4 out of 47 got this third question right. I know I need to spend time making sure that every student in my class knows this, and I may not need to worry about some of these other questions. Down below, I get each student's score individually, and then I get this question by question graph that I can copy and paste anywhere that I want. So again, all of that is done automatically, and it's very, very easy to set up. Okay. I can also create questions, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. So at this point, I'm going to head back to my slides and just make sure that I'm still on track. So allow me just 1 second as I transition. All right. So the next thing that we're going to look at, we've kind of already gone over the different types of posts. I do want to just quickly show you when you make the quiz, you will want to make sure that you've made the selection that it will import grades. And so all I have to do when I'm in the grade book is click this blue import grades button, and all of the scores from my students are going to then fill in down below. So on the left-hand side, you'll notice that Brian got a 40 out of 100, Lindsay got a 60, Lucy got a 60, and so forth. Okay. So I'm heading back to Classroom now, and we're going to look at our next tab over. One quick thing before we leave classwork, sorry about that, is all of these resources that I have on the classwork tab are drag and droppable. So if I want to move the entire topic of cell membranes down, I can. If I want to reorder some of the resources within May 11th through 15th, I can. And again, it's just drag and dropping to put it into the order that I want. All right, so at this point, I'm bouncing over to the People tab. And in here, there are 2 main ways that we can add people to our class, and then there are also 2 different roles that we can assign. So that are 3 different roles we can assign, actually. So the first role that we see is I can add other teachers. So if I want to, I can click this plus sign to invite a teacher. I'm going to invite John at adamdisciple.com. And now John's going to get a notice that he is a co-teacher. If you have a collaborative teacher, this is a really good route to take. Or if you are a grade level team, or maybe a middle school cross-curricular team, you can make 1 class and be able to have everyone in there. Then down below, we get the students options. And so there are, again, 2 different ways that we can do this. The first is you get a student code, or there's a class code. So I can access that either from the stream, or I can go to my settings gear in the top right. When I go there, and scroll down a little bit, in the general section, it says class code. Right now, mine is GVR7SGK, and I can display it and have that up. So if you are meeting with your students in real time, you can have that up on your board or write it on the wall, and they can join that way. Or if we're doing things distance to start things off, maybe in your welcome newsletter or email that you send to parents, you can have that class code in there as well, so that they can get in, the students can get in and join your class. The other way that we can do it is, you'll notice that next to students, we have this plus sign, just like we saw for teachers. When I click on that, I can type in their names too. So this one would take a little bit longer for you, but it would be a good way to ensure that all of your students are added to your class, especially if you're working with littles. So here I've selected Miles. I can hit invite. And now the next time that Miles goes to Google Classroom, he'll see a card from my class that says, do you want to join? Or confirm or something along those lines. And when he clicks on it, he'll get access to my course. So the third type of role that we can have in Classroom is this guardian part. And so I can attach a guardian to the student by next to the student's name, do invite guardian, and I can type in Carter's parent, so I can put that email in here and hit invite, and it'll send them an option to begin getting weekly summaries of their students' learning. Not all districts have that turned on. If yours doesn't, you can contact your technology team, but it is a really helpful way to help bridge the gap when it comes to communication. Some other things that you can do from this view, if we select Carter and we do that little checkbox, you'll notice that I get actions. And from here, I can email him directly. So I can select these 5 students and email them. I can mute him, and that makes it where he can't reply in the classroom stream if we have a discussion or to a post that I make. The other thing I can do, if I come over to the 3 dots, I can email students or guardians and be able to continue to communicate with whomever I need to. At this point, we're going to keep rolling to the right-hand side, and now we're going to grades. And for this, I'm going to switch back to another one of my accounts so that we can see a fuller picture of what grades can look like. Okay, so I'm in here for grades. You can see my grade book. This is not, these are not students, so you don't have to worry about privacy as much, right? So in here, we can see that we have 6 different assignments. It would order it by due date if these had due dates, mine don't. And in here, I can start to give scores to people if I want. So I can click on this assignment, allow me to introduce myself, and Carrie got an 85 out of 100. So I can hit enter, and that's gonna be in there. I can also go in, and John got a 45 out of 100. He needs to go back and do this again. Now, something to note, their scores are not going to be affected by the grade until I remove it from being a draft and I share that score with them. So I can do that a couple different ways. I can do that student by student by clicking the 3 dots next to the score. So here I have 85 out of 100. I can click the 3 dots and return. Or I can return it to every student for that assignment at the same time. So if I go up to the assignment name, click the 3 dots that are up there, I can return all. And each of those students who have a change to their grade will get an update, and they'll be able to see how they've done. At that point, it's going to affect their overall grade. Please note that I get information at the top of my screen about what the class average is for any of these assignments. So they have a 91.33 for the week 1 exit ticket. They have a 52-ish for that quiz that we saw, and we can be able to go in and see all of those. If I need to get into a particular assignment, I can come up here to its name, and all of that's hyperlinked. So when I click on exit or week 1 exit ticket, or even better, level 1 skills, it's going to come up with all of my students' work. organized for me. And so this was an example of when I use that make a copy for each student. And I can go into Lindsay's assignment. No, Lindsay, we'll go to Mary's assignment here. And when I'm in here, I'm able to see her work in real time. So as soon as I hit make a copy for the student, I can go in and start giving feedback to the student. So in here, I can do this a couple different ways. I can highlight something and then use the comment feature. So in the top right, or sorry, up above a little bit, you might see it looks like a speech bubble with a plus sign. When I click on that, I can start to put in comments that are tagged to certain parts of the assignment. So please reflect on this section. And now Mary's going to get that comment in here, and she knows exactly how she can improve her work by going through these. When she's completed it, when she's resolved it, she can hit the check and it's going to hide that. But she can also reply, and we can have a feedback loop going to be able to make sure that we know exactly what we want to do. Some other cool things that we can do from here. In the top left, it says Mary Kelly's name. When I click on the drop-down menu, I can see all of my different students. So if now I want to switch to Sarah, I can click on Sarah's name and be able to give her feedback too. This makes it easy because I don't have to go into Google Drive or go through my emails and find every time that a student has submitted something. They're all bundled together for me, which is very helpful. The other thing that is very easy and of great assistance for me is notice that this file is named with the student's name dash the name of the assignment, so that it's automatically named. I don't have to worry about them emailing me a file that just says paper and it doesn't have their name, or maybe they put a nickname on there and I don't know their nickname. It makes it very easy to organize and find what I need. Next to where we have the drop down, I can use these arrows to navigate to find any of these assignments that I might need. And again, it makes it super easy. Now on the right-hand side is where I can give grades. I can add a private comment that just the student and I will see, and they can leave a comment for me. The other thing that we can do, if we've chosen to make a rubric, that rubric would show up right here too. And it makes it very simple to be able to communicate and leave feedback for our student. When I'm completely done with giving the feedback that I want, whether that's adding a score in there or simply a formative, here's how you can improve what you're doing, I would hit return or return all, and my students would get that feedback. And so that's really those are the main parts of grades. There's one last place that I want to make sure that we go as we're talking about the gradebook part, and that's going back to the settings gear in the top right-hand corner. When we go here, we've already seen this a little bit, but we have our class details that we looked at when you set up your course originally. We also see that we have the class code that we already talked about. We're going to skip over some things for just a second and go down to where it says grading. And in here, we are going to be able to customize how we want to calculate our score. So I'm going to get rid of some of these previous changes that I made so that we can see what it looks like from scratch. So the first thing we see, we have a drop down for overall grade calculation. We have 3 choices: no overall grade, total points, or weighted by category. It's completely up to you. I know a lot of districts have guidelines, or schools or departments might have guidelines for, are you doing total points? Are you doing weighted categories? But you can do all that here too. So I'm going to change mine to weighted by category. Next, we have the option of, do we display the overall grade to our students? If you are in a district that your official grades are in PowerSchool or some other gradebook software, you may want to have your overall grades to students turned off in here so that they don't get confused if those numbers don't align. If you wanted them to be able to see it and that wasn't an issue for you, you can just toggle this on and now they can see it. The final thing that we see in grading is add grade category. And so with this, I can put in as many categories as I want, but please note grade categories must add up to 100%. So this could be unit 1, then I add my second one, this will be unit 2, Unit 3, and so forth. So this first one is worth 40. Next one is 40. And then it tells you remaining 20%. So I'm going to put that in there. And it equals 100. And when I'm making my assignment, I can tag, please add this to category, or I would say add this to category Unit 1 or Unit 2 and so forth. When I'm done, I do need to make sure I hit save or my changes won't take place. Couple last things that I want to show you within the settings. We talked before about, I do need to switch, okay. So I'm going back to my settings here, and we talked before about being able to have Guardian summaries. I was just in my school district account, and we don't have Guardian summaries turned on. Now I'm in my own domain that I made, and I can turn summaries on, and it is just this toggle right here. And I want to show you what a Guardian summary looks like. So when we click the See Example option, in here, it tells our parents on a weekly basis what missing work their student has, what upcoming work they have, and what's been going on in all of their students' courses. Even if they're in 5 courses, 7 courses, it's all going to be bundled together in a single email. And so when we see this example, it says, here's the weekly summary for Felix. Here's missing work. And as the parent, I can go connect with my child or with the teacher, or maybe and the teacher, and be able to help that student find success. I know that here are the 2 assignments that are coming up, one in US history, one in marine biology. And then here are all the things that have happened in US history, American lit, and so forth. It makes it very easy for me to be able to help support the learning for my child. And the cool thing is the teacher doesn't have to do anything. This is completely automated and bundled together for the parent without anything having to happen on the teacher's side. Now going back to our settings, a couple other things that I want to make sure that we check out is where it says stream. So it says general, then we get class code, and within that it also says stream. And I want you to click that drop-down menu. By default, your course is probably students can post and comment. And I would really encourage you to probably switch it to only teachers can post or comment for the majority of the time. And the reason why is that the stream can get filled, if we have it on that first setting of students can post and comment, the stream can get filled up with student comments. And your kiddos may not be able to find the information that they actually need, which might be, here are my assignments, here's an announcement from the teacher. So I would really encourage you, start off with only teachers can post or comment. Anytime a teacher creates something, it's going in as a post. Think of this as a discussion board. The topic is called a post, and then people can reply to it. This next option is only teachers can make that initial post, but students can comment on that post. And that's also a helpful one. I like to, please know that you can turn these on or off or adjust these at any point. So if you have a particular assignment you want feedback on, you can switch your setting in here to students can comment, get the feedback you want, and then switch it back to only teachers can post or comment, and it would adjust accordingly. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna head back to our slides and just kind of regroup and make sure that we're touching on the things we need to. We've seen how to customize our assignments through putting it in multiple classes or posting to individual students. A quick note, and we do have an upcoming session on HyperDocs tomorrow. We have 2 sessions on HyperDocs. This is a really good way to bundle your materials in Google Classroom so that you're not posting 50 different links. You can post one assignment with a single Google Doc that might have all the learning materials that you need. So again, we do have some space in tomorrow's session if you want to join and haven't signed up yet. We've looked at how to do the feedback. And again, on slide 11, we do have a video that will run through how to do feedback. Gradebook and rubrics you can go check out as well, including parents. We have a video in there. Quizzes, this will walk you through step-by-step of how to create your quiz and save time. Bye, Amy. My wife is taking off, so bye. Okay. We can do different themes, and I'll show you that in just a second. There is an option, and this is kind of a newer option within Classroom, and that's an originality report. So I know a lot of teachers are big fans of Turnitin.com, and we have a big concern about how do our students, how do we ensure that they are turning in their own work? And so that's now a built-in feature of Classroom. There is a video on how to do this. Please note that you can only do that on 3 assignments per class. So just use it wisely. Use it for those bigger assignments, not the like just a daily homework assignment. All right, so we're gonna change gears a little bit and talk about how we can use build up community in our classrooms, which is really helpful as we don't really know what this next school year might look like. So in here, there's a new tool called Google Meet, and a lot of districts are using this as their preferred method of engaging with students during this time. And it's completely built into Classroom now. Back in April, they integrated the 2 tools, and it's been really cool. So to turn this on, again, this is a setting that a district may or may not have turned. They may adjust it. So if you don't see it as an option, you can contact your district admin. But for me, I do have it turned on. So I'm going to click on my settings gear again. And down here in general, you'll see this option of Meet. So if you do not have this option, you probably will just want to follow along on my screen. Okay. So in here, it says Classroom now supports Meet. You can learn more. It gives you that information. It gives me a link, a unique link that's only good for the students who are a member of my class. And then I have this toggle for, is my link visible to my students? And I want to show you kind of what my workflow would be in using Meet with my kiddos. So I'm going to turn this on. And now that I have my Meet link set up, and really that's all it is, I just have to click that toggle button. Now when I'm in my stream, my students are going to see this button up here, or this link up here that says Meet link. And all they have to do to join my video conference is to click on that link and they're in. This is also going to show up in the classwork page. So we have a button for Meet, a button for calendar, and a button for class drive folder, and our kids could see it there too. Now, my workflow, if I wanted my students to join me for a certain time, I could come in and in here post our next class is Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Please check back for the Meet link. Okay, so my kids know that tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. we're having our meeting. Until 11:25, I'm gonna have this link turned off. And at 11:25, I'm gonna go in, check that button, and now kids can start to join. I wanna make sure that at all times, my students are protected. They don't have access to places that I don't need them to have access to. Some other cool things that we can do with this, after I have my meeting, after my students use this, this link, I'm going to go back to my settings and I'm going to go to where my Meet link is and I'm going to reset it. And I'm going to turn off the link again for my kids. That way they can't try to go back into that meeting link. I want them to be completely safe and secure. It's still showing up on my screen, but I do have this icon here that lets me know that it's not visible to students. So again, I want to ensure my students' safety. So Meet is a really cool tool. When I click this link and launch a meeting as the teacher, it's going to bring me in here. And if someone else tried to access and they weren't part of my domain, so my school systems account, they would not be allowed to. It would say, please check the link. Are you sure you're supposed to be here? And they wouldn't be able to be in there, which is really cool. When I join, I get a lot of the same controls that a tool like Zoom would have. But again, if I can use a tool that is completely integrated with something else that my students are using, like Classroom, I'm going to do that. Now you might have the question of why are we using Zoom for these sessions and not Meet? And again, it's because of how secure Meet is. If you're trying to do it within a domain, other people really, it's a challenge to get external accounts into that, that meeting. So that's why we chose to do it through Zoom. Okay, so I'm gonna head back to our slides and we'll keep rolling. If you wanna learn more about how to build community, Wednesday, we do have a couple sessions on that topic. So I definitely invite you to join for that. Slide 19 is looking at how we can use the question the question content. So when we do that, we're going to classwork, hitting create, and doing question. And there are two different types of questions we can do. We can do a short answer. So this might be quick. I can't type. Check in. How was your weekend? And this would be similar to like a discussion board. On the right-hand side, we can turn off, students can reply to each other. Again, you might want to scaffold to think through what that looks like in a respectful way. Or we can change it to a multiple choice, and this really becomes a poll. So it might be, when should our next meeting be? I can give them two choices. So 11 or 11:30. And when I'm ready, I'll hit ask, and my students can see in real time what the choice would be. So we have just a couple last things that we're going to look at as we are wrapping up with Classroom today. Please note that both Android and iOS have some really cool mobile apps that you can use. So in here, some features that aren't on the desktop or web-based version. You can open up an assignment and then give feedback by drawing on it in the mobile ones. And then another thing is when a student submits something, you can attach a file as feedback. So I could use my camera on my phone to record a video to my students and provide more feedback or more personal feedback than maybe a typed message would. The other thing to know is if your school uses Chromebooks, a lot of Chromebooks have Android built into them, and you can use those apps. So you might be able to get those features on a school Chromebook if you're using them. This isn't super relevant for right now, but the end of year checklist, you can save any of the classes that you make. So I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to make a copy of my course and show you how easy this is. So if I'm teaching the same courses every year, I don't want to start from scratch when August comes around or September comes around. So in the top right corner of my classes, you'll notice I have these three dots. When I click on it, I have the option of making a copy. So I'm going to name this next year. And this becomes summer 20. Now when I hit copy, it will take a couple moments because I do have quite a few assignments and topics and so forth in here. But I will get a notice in just a moment that it has finished copying, and I can start to go in and see what this looks like. So in here, next year, Google Level 1, when I get into my class, all of the assignments that I had in my previous course are now listed in there as a draft, and I can go and edit them. And when I'm ready for that assignment to come up in my calendar, I would just hit assign or schedule it, and my kids would be able to see it. Now, when I'm done with that course, so like this VT Google Level 1, I can click my three dots and archive it, and it just hides it from this view, but I can always go back to it at a future point. So you'll see that this course is now ready. And in here, when I go to the classwork tab, again, it might take just a moment. It will tell me that everything's as a draft. Slowly. Okay. So again, two helpful things at the end of the year. And as we started off, please go back to the Google Teacher Center that getting started resource that we looked at the beginning of our session. It's very helpful. As we mentioned before, please share that type of resource or today's session with your coworkers or people who you think might benefit from these learning materials. At this point, I do want to thank you for joining me today. I know that this session in particular moves very quickly, but I do encourage you, you will get that follow-up email with the recording that you can always go back to. My other sessions are also a bit more interactive. We have so much content in this one that it is me talking quite a bit, but in our later session today, there'll be more back and forth. I do want to thank John and Eric for being our moderators. They have been awesome. Looks like there are a lot of comments going in the chat and they've been able to handle everything expertly. Thank you guys. Also, thank you to Pam and Liza that this event and all of this entire series has been free. That's awesome for our educators here. And as we keep rolling, please leave feedback. So on slide 26, and one of the moderators will drop this into the chat as well. But if you go to bit.ly/3E76XNX, that is our feedback form for this series. And if you could head there, fill out that form. If you want to receive a certificate for renewal credit, this is also where you'll do it. Please double, triple check that you write your name and email address correctly. So that you will receive your certificate. If you don't type it in correctly, we can't assume that you'll receive it. So at this point, if you have questions after you've done your feedback form, please stick around. We have about 10 minutes so we can field some questions. Otherwise, you can drop off, and it's been great working with you guys. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I'll see you soon.